The legislature is now back in session. We are still on bill number 41-35 with the sponsor, Speaker Tina Munya-Barnes. I'd like to call on Senator Munya to speak on the motion. Thank you.
Madam Speaker. I fully support the program, and I believe that it can only be an advantage to our young adults to pursue a career maybe in policymaking, but maybe not so much policymaking, but even any one of the seats that the legislature holds here in our legislature, whether it be for clerk or for our legal or even our audio visual department. I think it can only inspire them to take a step forward maybe in this policy-making process and open up their eyes to really see exactly what we do as public servants. And yeah, I only wish that, I don't even know if it was around when I was going to school, but if it had, maybe I would have chosen this path a lot sooner, or maybe even not at all. But I don't even remember this program even around when my kids were going to school. And so it really was enlightening to see that there is something like this for our young adults. Like our speaker, prior to going into recess before lunch, I too also wondered what was the reasoning for making it become a public law. And if the program was already so successful, why did we need to put it into our public records as a law? But then I realized too that maybe it was a good thing to go ahead and put this into law so that we can fine-tune it and then also allow it to evolve as the program grows bigger. And then I also realized that with that thought that what we're doing right now is we're putting that program in the limelight and allowing other students or teachers, maybe even schools that don't know about the program, to be fully aware of it, and it can only make the program better. So I support this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Munya. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on the measure? Okay. Senator Shelton, can you please take the bench?
We will take a moment's recess. We are back from recess. Vice Speaker Nelson, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I fully support the intent of this bill. However, there's a little bit of ambiguity on the selection process for the candidates who partake in this measure. And also, for the record, I'm hoping that when we move forward with this Public Policy Institute, that we also, perhaps the sponsor would design a mission and vision for the students, and also for our colleagues as they receive the students, what is the intent and what would be the primary focus for their internship at the Guam Legislature. I know some of them have done a lot of substantive work for this body, and it's really a grace and a blessing for us, because we are allowing the ability for us to see the needs of our youth and to be like-minded with our future leaders of this island, so that we're all going in the same direction. And I think that's very important as we move forward into a new era. There are some amendments that I'd like to proffer, and the first one will be on page 6. And this one would read, interns shall be compensated with a stipend at the discretion of the intern's assigned senator, and stipend shall be paid from the assigned senator's budget. And just to, to reward the work that they do. We know many times that our students are in need of a job or are sacrificing one job to be in place with the other. And so I'm hoping that for them to understand that they're able to move the work forward and perhaps be compensated fairly. I think that would be a just reward for the interns that we are assigned. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Vice Speaker. And just to clarify, this will be on page 6, and to add it to continue on as line 20?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and so on the amendment, anyone on the amendment? Speaker Tina Rose Munya Barnes, followed by Senator Terlahi.
Madam Speaker, I really didn't have or don't have a problem with this intent right now, but I'm going to ask you for a couple of minutes to recess so that I can talk to the good author of this amendment, because it was the intent to make this bill go into statute so that the key players can ascertain possibility of resources from the national level and see what we could do within. And I did note through the fiscal note that the waiver was provided because it wasn't asking for a specific fee at the time. We know that this program that's open to even to homeschooling, charter schools, and all the public schools and private schools, we know that the age level is starting from middle school now, it's what it's called, middle, high school, and college. And so I'm going to ask you just, if I could just have a moment's recess so I can confer with the good author of this amendment, so I could share with her why we didn't put this provision in the bill at the time of its introduction.
Just a point of information, Madam Speaker.
Please state your point of information.
There's no specific designation of how old you have to be to enter the program in this statute, so I'm thinking that they would be 15 years or older. Now, if we're going all the way to the middle school level, then I think that we should also make an amendment for that. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay, thank you. We will take a moment's recess. The legislature is back from recess. Speaker Tina Munoz Barnes, you are recognized.
Si Jules Masi, Madam Speaker, for that moment's recess, I had the opportunity to speak with the good author, Vice Speaker Nelson, on this amendment, and I do know that our colleague, who's also the co-sponsor of this bill, has an amendment that will truly answer the concern that I had earlier. So I just want to take the opportunity to thank you, to say I understand where the intent of this amendment was going to, but I'm hoping that we could further place a further amendment that would make it more accommodating for the program so that we can ascertain things moving forward.
Are you offering an amendment to the amendment?
I have a good co-sponsor that will author the amendment to work the concern.
All
Thank you.
right. We are still going in the order. Senator Terlahi, you are recognized. Did you want to speak on the amendment? You know.
Just a point of order, Madam Speaker. Right now, the amendment that we are discussing is still the original amendment.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. Anyone else wishing to speak on the amendment? You had your hand up? Okay, Senator Castro, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. After conferring with the author of the amendment and Speaker Barnes, I believe that there's an agreement to make an amendment. So I proffer the following amendment, substituting the word shall with may on the first sentence, and stipends paid shall be from the assigned senator's budget. I'll go ahead and repeat that. Forgive me for not putting it in writing, but interns may be compensated with a stipend at the discretion of the intern's assigned senator, period. Stipends paid shall be from the assigned senator's budget. Does that sound right, Senator Nelson?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Senator Castro, I'll repeat it for our colleagues. Interns may replace the word shall with may be compensated with the stipend at the discretion of the intern's assigned senator. Stipends paid from the assigned senator may be paid from the assigned senator's budget. Shall be paid. Anyone on the amendment to the amendment? Senator Joseph Augustine, followed by Senator Titagui.
Madam Speaker, when we talk about stipend, there's certain stipends that are paid for different reasons and different amounts. I think maybe the author of the amendment may want to change the stipend statement to say minimum wage so that we know that we have a set amount. Because when we talk about stipend, I'll give a good example. The Municipal Planning Council is $50. The Board of Education is $250. It varies on the word stipend. Unless you identify specifically the amount, then it's subject to what the senator wants the stipend to be. He may say, well, my stipend amount is $25, and that's I don't think that's the intent.
Thank you very
All right,
much,
thank you.
Senator San Augustine. We will dispose of this amendment first, the amendment to the amendment, and if someone would like to address that as another amendment. Senator Titagui, discussion on this current amendment? The amendment to the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, that was a big concern that I had as well. I appreciate the amendment being made, turning shall to may. But you know, this whole amendment period is just opening Pandora's box. We don't even know, like the previous speaker saying, how much stipend do they receive? You know, I have interns that go to my office, and they're high school students. Some of them are college students. They just want to come to get the experience. Some of them get extra credit by working in a senator's office for a little bit of time. I mean, we don't need this bill for any student to get a certificate from Senator Titigui's office who worked there for 1 month as an intern. But, you know, I really have difficulty about putting a stipend on something like this. when the whole intent of the bill is these individuals coming to get the experience, to getting the credit for working in a senator's office. And that alone is a wealth of, of knowledge that didn't cost anything to anybody and shouldn't cost our taxpayers any money either. So now we're opening this up. So, I'm going to wait and object to the amendment as a whole, unless there's some kind of structure in here, which there is no structure. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator Taitigui. Anyone else on the amendment to the amendment? Senator Perez, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to bring a point of information to the body that, having been a teacher, there is a requirement for graduation, which is service learning, and should they be paid, they cannot use it for service learning hours. So I think to allow this to be a little bit more flexible, I think it makes sense in that context. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Perez. Anyone else on the amendment to the amendment? Hearing no objections, the amendment passes. We are now on the, she did not object. Now we are on the amendment as amended. Anyone wishing to discuss the amendment as amended? Senator Terlahi, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This amendment, I'm embarrassed to admit, highlighted for me a provision of the bill that I was not aware of. I was not aware that these interns were going to be assigned to different senators at the discretion of the Speaker. I thought this was going to be a Speaker and chairperson of the youth run program, similar to the ones that they are running now, and that we, in our senatorial offices, we're going to continue to have discretion as to who we hire, which interns we allow in our offices to, and what work especially they're going to work on. And so while I could see that the program may work, but I would think that every legislature is they should maybe decide that for themselves. I mean, that's just my thoughts now, realizing that there's a provision in the bill that allows the Speaker to mandate which interns will go where. And that it was not a central program, that it was going to go to our senatorial offices. Because I already take interns into my office, as I said it earlier, so I just thought this was adding on to those, what we are doing in our individual offices. But my objection to this amendment is that, first of all, the bill underwent a public hearing without any fiscal impact. And the BBMR said no fiscal impact, and that was one consideration. This type of fiscal impact, I just think we're just mandating costs of the legislature to increase, and I think that should be left again to each legislative body to determine whether they will pay interns or they will not. But I most especially rise because one of the main arguments in favor of the bill was that it was going to allow these students to gain service credit. And I think the previous speaker also highlighted this, that they conflict, that service credits is supposed to be unpaid. That's my understanding. There are also some internships at the University of Guam, I believe. Some allow you to be paid, some say you may not be paid. It's very quirky like that. So I just think this changes the complexion of the program, and then it makes it, I don't know, I just think it would change the complexion of what we think this program is going to be. And it's, again, these interns under this program are not selected by the senators. They will only be selected by the Speaker and the chairperson on youth. And I think if the whole payment thing is a whole other can of worms that I just think we should not open right now. Each individual senator can take that up with interns that they want to accommodate and pay. Si Dios mas.
Thank you very much, Senator Terlahi. Anyone wanting to speak on the amendment as amended? Okay, Vice Speaker Nelson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I am appreciative of the dialogue and the debate, and that was part of the purpose of introducing this, so that we can open up a little bit more about the ambiguity of it all. And so, with that being said, I want to withdraw my amendment. And then I have another amendment that I'd like to proffer.
Please proceed.
The amendment is on line 10, page 5, and the previous speaker spoke on this.
I'm sorry. Vice Speaker, make a motion to withdraw your amendment.
I'd like to make a motion to withdraw my amendment.
Any objections? Hearing none. Please proceed with the next amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, my next amendment is on line 10, page 5, and one of our previous colleagues spoke on this measure, and if you turn to page 5, it reads, page 5, subsection 161045, line 10. The speaker shall have the discretion to assign students to certain senators based on the applicant's interest, work ethic, and the interview. And so, Madam Speaker, really there was some question that I had that in the beginning we include the chairperson of the Committee on Youth Affairs in collaboration with the speaker to choose candidates' eligibility. And then on this, at the end of the same subsection, it just designates the speaker to have discretion to assign students. And so the bill, the amendment that I have for Bill 41 is on line 10, page 5, to include, after the word "the speaker," and the chairperson on the Committee of Youth Affairs.
Thank you very much, Vice Speaker. Anyone wishing to speak on the amendment? Senator Tydegui, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm just making a comment. I think one of my colleagues is going to make an amendment here, but I think that we should have, since this is a bipartisan support that's been mentioned several times on this particular bill, then I think there should actually be some bipartisan on the deciding factor of where these interns should go, especially if we can have a say on the minority side of it. I mean, who knows? We could be majority next year or whatever the case may be, but I think there should be some type, there should be some bipartisanship in this. So I think one of my colleagues is going to make an amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak on the amendment? Senator Moylan, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In line with the last statement from my colleague, yes, I'd like to make an amendment to the amendment on line 10, page 5, to amend the bill to read, the Speaker and the Chairperson of the Committee of Youth Affairs, in consultation with the Minority Leader, shall have the. I think that will be a good compromise. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
There's been an objection. Senator Moylan, can you please restate your amendment?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Again, amendment to the amendment, basically that to read the Speaker and the Chairperson on the Committee of Youth Affairs, in consultation with the Minority Leader, shall have the. Okay. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Sidus Masi, Senator Moylan, the proposed amendment to the amendment would read, the Speaker and the Chairperson on the Committee of Youth Affairs, in consultation with the Minority Leader. There has been an objection registered. Anyone else? Senator Tydegui, you are recognized.
Madam Speaker, I think there's, some fairness into this. It's an internship that's going to be decided upon what senators, like the previous speaker, not previous, but good senator from Jonia had mentioned earlier. And it's important to include more than just 2 people. I mean, I have no objections with the amendment made, proffered on this, including the another senator involved, but just for 2 people to make these decisions, I mean, is there anything in the bill that actually allows us not to accept these interns? So, once again, everyone talks about, bipartisan support, so let's show some bipartisan support here and support this amendment.
Thank you, Senator Titlery. Senator Castro, you are
Thank you.
recognized, and followed by Senator Perez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of the amendment. I just want to highlight that in good faith consultation simply means that they'll confer. I have no problems with the Speaker making these administrative appointments or decisions in collaboration with the other committee chair. I look at it more like the Speaker is the head of the House administering the program on our behalf, but I do stand in support of the amendment to the amendment.
Thank you, Senator Castro. Senator Perez?
Just a point of inquiry to the author of the amendment. Is there a reason why the amendment was placed in that section versus in the administration section?
Madam Speaker, point of order. I believe there was a point of inquiry,
Point of inquiry, so
and I think it
the
was...
original author of the amendment, do you
Is that
yield
to me?
To you, Senator,
Can-
Vice Speaker.
Can they please repeat the point of inquiry, Madam Speaker?
Senator Perez, would you please repeat your inquiry?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm sorry, Madam Speaker. Yeah, the question was towards the last speaker, and I was questioning whether what was the reasoning behind putting the amendment in that section versus in section 161023 or 16103.
Okay, Sitius Masi, Senator Perez, so your question is to the mover of the amendment to the amendment? Okay, so Senator Moylan, do you yield to the question? Senator Perez is asking why this section.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If I can just have a brief recess, and I'll be happy to work this out. If we can have a brief recess, please.
Oh, we will take a 1-minute recess.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The legislature is back from recess. Senator Moylan, do you yield to Senator Perez's inquiry?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And after speaking with the good senator on the, per the question, yes, this needs to also be addressed in the administrative part of the bill. And I would like to ask legal that it would be consistent throughout the bill with these changes, with making the amendment to the amendment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. And so, anyone else wishing to discuss the amendment to the amendment? Yes, Senator Terlahi.
I have no objection to the amendment, Madam Speaker, but I do think it's kind of funny that the person who's not being consulted according to this framework is the senator who's going to be on the receiving end of these interns. So maybe, I don't know if this is patterned after a national program, but I can't imagine that that's what they do, but I don't know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Senator Lee.
Sujas Masi, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I share the sentiment of the retiring speaker, and hopefully once we dispense with this amendment, I have an amendment to the amendment to address that. Sujas Masi.
Thank you very much. So we are still on the amendment to the amendment. Anyone else wishing to speak on it? Okay. Yes. Vice Speaker Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I believe a colleague of ours has another amendment that would be able to remedy this whole thing. And so I'd like to withdraw my amendment and allow our colleague to enter his. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
There has been a motion to withdraw the entire amendment. Any objections? Okay. Motion passes. Okay. Vice Speaker Nelson, you are still recognized. We will take a brief recess. Legislature is back in session. Vice Speaker Nelson, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to yield the rest of my time to my colleague, Senator San Augustine. I believe he has an amendment to proffer.
Thank you very much, Vice Speaker. Senator San Augustine, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to introduce an amendment that is ready circulated among members to amend the bill as follows. On page 3, line 22 to 24 of the bill, where you see the word "and assigned" be striked. Pretty much anywhere you see an assignment, it'll be striked, because it's striked on page 3, line 22 and 24. And then you'll find on page 5, the section there of B, assignments, be striked out completely. And the whole intent, Madam Speaker, is that if the speaker in this program, I'm in support of the program, but I just don't like the assignment part. I'm not in favor of the assignment. If there's any students in that office that's applying and the senator, like myself, wants to participate and there's a list of students that are there, I can choose who's available and what's their background. And there may be students that would actually say, I want to work for Senator San Augustine's office. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Has the amendment been passed out?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
Okay. On the amendment, anyone wishing to discuss? On the amendment, hearing no objections. This is not it. We'll take a moment's recess. Okay, thank you very much. On Senator San Augustine's amendment, hearing no objections, the motion passes, amendment passes. Anyone else wishing to speak on the bill? Senator Regine, you are recognized.
Sister Smossy, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I just have a quick amendment. It's been sent to legal, but we can also, it's just a move to strike on page 6, lines 17 through 19. The language is, interns who graduate with distinction shall receive a legislative resolution from the Speaker's office and a cord to wear during graduation from their school, college, or university. This doesn't preclude us from giving them a resolution if we feel that they need it, but we don't need to mandate that in statute, is my feeling. And also, I had a question about who pays for the cord for them to wear to graduation. So I'm just moving to strike this language, and we can still move to do that if we're so inclined, but I don't think it needs to be in statute. Sister Smossy.
Thank you very much. Can you repeat the page and line number?
Sure, it's page 6, lines 17 through 19.
Thank you very much, Senator Biscoli. The amendment is to strike on page 6, lines 17 to 19. Anyone wishing to speak on the amendment? Hearing no objections, the amendment passes. Anyone on the main bill? Senator Kelly Marsh Taitino, you are recognized.
I'm only co-sponsoring with the speaker, so I will defer to the speaker.
Okay, thank you very much. Speaker, would you like to close on the bill?
Sizu Smasi, Madam Speaker, and in collaboration with my co-sponsors in working on this, I do have a proffered amendment that I will do on her behalf, that it's the It's on page 3, line 25, to add a C, to add a new subsection to C in section 16103 of the bill to read the PPI program shall strive to welcome and encourage and support students with diverse backgrounds and experiences, but I think I wanted to include, I'm sorry if I may, Madam Speaker, it's students with indigenous and diverse backgrounds and experiences. And to add that word after with, indigenous and diverse backgrounds and experiences. Again, allowing that this program will be open for everybody, and just gives them the spirit of cooperation and working together, that it would be open to everybody. On that motion first, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Anyone wishing to discuss the amendment?
No.
Senator Terlahi, you are recognized.
Thank you. I have no objection to the amendment. I just kind of wanted to air my thoughts a little bit. And diversity is great. I just hope it doesn't turn into like a quota system where we need to have one Asian, one Chamorro, one this or that, because I think we have to recognize it's a privilege that's only going to be afforded to a few. And I'd like to see, I think, we earlier talked about private schools versus public schools, and I think the spirit of that was just to encourage that, we know if you have transportation, if you have, parents that are cooperative, you can easily enter a program like this and be, transported to it and things like that, especially high school students I'm talking about. It's not so easy when you don't have all those, everything in your favor. And so we see this disparity in the schools very much. And I think we still know that the statistics are not showing that we have a large population on Guam. We still have a large part of our community who are potential first-generation college students. And I like to just stay on the record. I hope we look for them, right? So we give them a chance to experience this, and I hope that we look for not necessarily those who have political connections, because it's much easier for them to enter into any office and have this type of experience or even get a job. But those whose families have really not seen this type of environment or have not been experienced in it, and those students, especially, we've seen them on Youth Leadership Day, who they're actually very interested in policy and making better laws for the people of Guam. And I know that we already have a Youth Congress program going, so I hope that they don't duplicate each other. We don't see just the same people doing both, although I know that we have had that, and it's a benefit to them to get more in depth, but still, I just think if we're gonna, it's a privilege that I would just like to see expanded as much as possible, and I have faith that the Speaker and those who are implementing it in future legislatures will strive for that. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator Terlahi. Anyone wishing to speak on the amendment? Senator Moylan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Though I can understand the reasoning for this amendment, I do object to the amendment. And I feel this program is open for everyone. And when I review the bill here on page 4, it gives a whole bunch of qualifications also, so that the student can strive to be part of this program. First off, you have to submit an application. Then you have to have other qualifications, like at least be on the island for 12 months. Then you have to have a grade point average of 3.0. And you also have to be a sophomore or even higher. Then you had to come before the body and you had to give a personal statement. You had to show strong writing skills, analytical skills, and you had to get a recommendation from somebody at the school or a public officer or a community leader. You even had to show your report card. So the idea is that this person must have a strong desire, and I think the school will promote the program so that they do. But to add one more thing, to tell the person, oh, you had to tell us how diverse you'll be as well. I think that this bill does more than enough to do that. And I say this amendment is not necessary, so I'm against this amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. Senator Taichino, you are recognized.
Seduce Mossy, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of this amendment. I mean, after all, I am a co-sponsor, so that makes sense. But this is very important. Mapoksai du Gini Guahan, I grew up here on Guam. And we've seen throughout the United States, we've seen throughout the world, we've seen here on island that society goes through changes. Society is never static. And we come from a time when people have been intentionally left out. Chamaros could only serve as mess attendants. In fact, my father-in-law, with a college degree, refused to sign up for the Navy because with his college degree and police laboratory background, he could only serve as a mess attendant. So we have learned these painful lessons. We have seen in not so many years ago that programs like this or bodies like this were majority men or majority something else. And the United States has had to work hard to open up its doors, to recognize a variety of characteristics, attributes, indigenous peoples, genders, sexual orientation, and all of it for equal consideration or fair consideration or parity. So while I have faith in those who have demonstrated nothing else in this particular last session of the Public Policy Institute, I think it's important. Well, I have faith in them that they have striven for having participants from homeschool programs. They strove to have people from a variety of programs and a variety of backgrounds and a variety of situations. None of these things are ever guaranteed. And I think it's important to say in writing that they're important enough to us that none of us want to slide back to those times where one could only be a mess attendant, one couldn't get their foot in the door because of their gender or their sexual orientation. And so all this is saying is that we be mindful. It's keeping the door open, it's having it as a goal, it has no quotas, it has no mandates, it has no shalls. It's just encouraging that we continue to move forward in case by any circumstance we fall backwards. To fall backwards, to go backwards to any of those times, I think would be a real shame. So this is just that encouragement. It says that we're all on the same page, that we believe we've been going in a good direction, and that we will continue to keep that as a good direction to be going in. Seduce Masi.
Thank you very much. Senator Munya, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm trying to wrap my head around it. I don't feel like we even need to put that in there. I think it's very apparent that we're trying to encourage all students, and putting it into statute, into a law that we're about, if we're going to pass it, about ready to pass it. It's just acknowledging past experiences, and I think moving forward, we shouldn't even acknowledge it. I think it should just be all students, period. I mean, maybe, if we really want to encourage and welcome and support students, we should just put all students, period. So I object to this amendment as well, too.
Thank you very much. Anyone on the amendment? Senator Taitigui, you are recognized. Then Senator Pito Terlahi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and for the opportunity to speak on this measure. Though I understand the intent of this, I really just don't think this is needed. then why don't we put this on every single program that we pass into law? Every program, down to whatever, Parks and Recs, or people on boards. You know, this language should be in everything, but we're just putting it right in this one here. I mean, that tells us that we can't do this on our own. What she said was good faith. What happened to good faith? That our speaker is not going to have, in good faith, be able to do this, that we have to put something in writing to make sure she has good faith? It's ridiculous. It's an amendment that definitely does not need it. If you want to get technical, then why don't we put something in here, individuals identifying themselves as a part of the LGTB group? Why don't we put that? Is that in here? No. You have indigenous, diverse backgrounds and experiences. We can go on and on and on if you want to get technical, if you want to be fair. But the point is faith. You have faith in this legislature to make sure that they're fair in choosing and deciding who's part of this group, and to encourage. It was stated earlier, we didn't need this legislation in order to bring this internship program, because it's doing it right now. And we definitely don't need this statement. So I object as well.
Thank you, Senator Tidegui. Senator Regine Biscoli, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of this amendment. I think there should be nothing objectionable about our desire to strive for diversity. I recognize the concerns that were brought up by a previous speaker, but this is not a quota. We are not outlining that, this many people do that, this many people be from this place. We're not saying that. This is an affirmative action. Simply, this is just the legislature saying that we should strive to make this program diverse. What is the harm in that?
Thank you, Senator Lee. Anyone else wishing to speak on the amendment? Senator Terlahi, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I was looking at the 12 months requirement. This particular bill doesn't extend the opportunity for other people to come in. For example, one of my nephew from the States will come in 6 months before being here for 12 months. In other words, that particular person not having 12 months of being here in Guam does not have that opportunity to be part of this program. Also, when I was going to school, right, and I would say that I don't have a 3.0 average, but supposedly I only have 2.5. And I became smart later on, but this particular bill doesn't give me the opportunity to enhance my intelligence and be a part of this program. I wanted to keep quiet but when I was looking at some of the requirements, it's rather really restrictive because it doesn't afford the opportunity for everybody that wants to enhance their intelligence and be part of this program. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator Terlahi. Senator Taitino.
Sidus Masi, Madam Speaker. I want to make what I feel is a point of personal preference. I've heard these stories, and I think it would surprise a whole lot of people that within our lifetime, my lifetime, even for me, it was shocking that segregation was alive during my lifetime. It didn't end until 1965, and it's not truly over now. But there are other stories of people much younger than
Point
myself.
of order, Madam Speaker, point of order. I'm not sure why the speaker is speaking again a second time. She had the opportunity, so I
Point
wanted
of
to
personal
verify because I
privilege.
didn't
Thank
hear
you.
how she's coming up and speaking.
I
Can you
believe
please-
she's closing on her amendment.
Well, point of personal privilege.
Oh, point of personal privilege.
Right. So the statement that none of this is needed, as I was saying, within my lifetime and the lifetime of several of us here, there has been something as intensive as segregation. Within others who are much younger than myself, they have had to fight hard for years for inclusion, to go from being put in classes such as special ed when they should have been mainstreamed, and they're with the rest of us. We have all kinds of situations that we continue to combat. And I believe everyone in here is working towards inclusion, but we can leave nothing of it up as assuming or guaranteeing, or at the very least, stating that it is something worth striving towards. We have all kinds of discrimination or exclusion that continue to exist. Women make maybe 73 cents on the dollar nationally as an average. There are all kinds of ceilings to continue to be striving towards. And I don't see how striving towards them, working towards them, could it ever be anything to not be working towards, to assume it's just going to happen. So I just appeal to my colleagues to think about those perhaps in their family or people around them that they know have been excluded in one way or another, that have had to fight in their lifetime for inclusion. And while I have faith in all of us here, nothing is ever guaranteed. And it's always good to be straightforward, open, and say that we are part of solving those sort of discriminatory practices or practices that intentionally or unintentionally exclude others. Being mindful, stating it, it's part of ensuring that it happens. So I wanted to clear that up. So just Masi.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone wishing to speak on the amendment? Would you like to close, Speaker Barnes? There has been an objection, so we will vote on the amendment. All those in favor of the Speaker Barnes and Kelly Marsh Type to No amendment, please raise your hand. Motion passes. Yes, you may continue, Speaker Barnes.
Situs Masi, Madam Speaker. First of all, I just want to take the time to thank everybody who co-sponsored this bill with me, and truly bring a program that was initiated by one of our previous colleagues who's no longer with us, and also one of our colleagues who was then not a policymaker, but is today a policymaker. This program that truly aims to allow participants to gain leadership, research, and workplace skills and experiences, I truly believe that programs like this, the success of the programs and the stories that come out of programs like this, that is truly a win-win, not just for our students, not just for our college students, but for the institution itself. I'm going to share with you, Madam Speaker, just one of the couple of short bits on two cohorts that have gone through the program. And one cohort who graduated from a public school, who may consider himself or herself an activist, had the opportunity saying, I really would like to work with one of your colleagues, Speaker, and that colleague, I believe, has inspired me. I'm a very shy person, but I want to be able to be given the opportunity so I can learn. I'm very close. It's very close to my heart that I want to continue to work on issues that advocate for our determination here on Guam. And that intern chose to work with one of our colleagues. And today, Madam Speaker, that intern is now working in the senator's office because of the experience that he's gained, because of the opportunity to follow his dream. Another story, Madam Speaker, that I want to share with you is that I had another intern who said to themselves that, you know what, I see this application, I heard about it, I'm going to the college right now, but I don't know if anybody, if someone like me would even be given the opportunity to be a part of this program. I don't think I have what it takes. I don't think that based on what I've gone through, the hardships that I've gone through, the experiences that I had, which was very, very hard, that I would be even given a choice. But because of that individual taking the time to share the experiences that that individual had gone through, the hardships, the suffering, the emotional tribulations, that individual was given the opportunity, just based on the story and the objective that was written on the essay, was literally given an opportunity from the committee to come. And today, Madam Speaker, that intern, that cohort, literally got picked up by a policymaker in this 35th Guam Legislature. And Madam Speaker, to that case, I understand that there are several more that have gone through the program and even have worked through the programs of the different senators. This program is one that could open opportunities for our policy-making body in general, as it will give them the hands-on training to work with leaders today, and truly maybe even find a place for them in their hearts to work in this body. So, Madam Speaker, I want to say thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak in support of this bill. I want to thank all the co-authors that took the time to work to be a co-sponsor with me. More importantly, I want to thank the interns and those from the education profession and policymaking, and just like the previous speaker from Barragata had talked about, the opportunities of these interns being able to work with leaders within the government agencies, within the affiliations with other national programs, to work on going to different training opportunities, working with the administration in both the executive branch and the judiciary, even working with our military partners. The humanitarian effort, Madam Speaker, that these interns take the time to do from their heart. And I must say that I'd be remiss, Madam Speaker, if I didn't thank the parents who have allowed their children and their loved ones to be a part of this program, because the humanitarian component of what that intern has to do is amazing. And who would think at a very young age that these students would step up, or these interns would step up to the plate and engage in efforts of helping our community residents out, our programs, the programs that exist today, and even working on new possibilities. Madam Speaker, it is amazing. So again, undankulu na si Zeus Masi to all those who spoke and rose in support of for the active communication and collaboration, and even in the spirit of debate that happened on the bill. I want to say thank you. And I hope, Madam Speaker, that our colleagues support this bill and it has a unanimous support. And at this time, I'd like to move this to the third reading voting file. Yes, hold on, Madam Speaker, if I may, before you do that. I do know that several of my colleagues wanted to be added. I'd like to add Senator Joe San Augustine, Senator Sabina, and all those who spoke in support of. I'd like to add them as a member, unless they don't want their names on. I'd like to add those. Vice Speaker, Talina, Nelson, if I may, and if there's anybody else, Senator Luis Munoz, Senator Pito Terlahi, and Sabina Perez. What am I missing? Senator Clint, Senator Therese, Senator Tello, Senator Jim, Senator Tello, no, Senator Torres. Thank you, Madam Speaker. So on the motion.
On the motion to add co-sponsors, are there any objections? Motion passes.
And then to third reading voting file, Madam Speaker.
On the motion to place the bill in the voting file, are there any objections? No objections? Motion passes. We will take a 1-minute recess.
You mean at 35 na legislature in Guam is back from recess. Colleagues, we are now on Bill number 102-35 LS. Senator Mary Torres, you are recognized on the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to move Bill number 102-35 LS, introduced by myself, Mary Torres, as amended by the Committee on Health, Tourism, Historic Preservation, Land, and Justice. This is an act to add a new Chapter 53 to Title VII GCA relative to the creation of civil remedies for victims of intentional or threatened disclosure of intimate images, and to further citing this act as the Guam Uniform Civil Remedies for Unauthorized Disclosure of Intimate Images Act. I move that this bill be placed in the third reading file, and I wish to speak on the measure further.
Please proceed, Senator Torres.
Zeus Masi. Madam Speaker, about 4 years ago, our predecessors in this legislative hall had the foresight to criminalize a form of abuse spreading across the nation. That abuse is the disclosure of intimate images without consent, often referred to as revenge pornography. Through Public Law 33-171, this body sent a clear message warning that abuse is a serious offense and that an individual convicted of unlawful distribution could face a year of prison or a third-degree felony if convicted again. I'm thankful for the work of the colleagues that came before us, but as several states are now realizing, criminalization, while an important deterrent, is deeply inadequate on its own. Put simply, justice must mean more than punishing the perpetrator. It must provide remedy for those whose rights have been violated. And that is essentially what Bill 102 does. By creating a civil cause of action, Bill 102 helps victims of non-consensual pornography to receive compensation for the harm that they've endured, independent of any criminal proceedings. This is very significant because of the clear economic consequences of being a victim. Many victims are stalked and harassed, threatened with sexual assault, terminated from employment, or expelled from their schools. While we can't put a price on depression or anxiety or post-traumatic stress, we can say that job loss or relocation expenses, legal fees, therapy and psychological support all factor into the financial costs of victimization. Even the Guam Police Department, Madam Speaker, acknowledged the need for civil remedies during the public hearing for the prior bill, Public Law 33-171. When asked if civil litigation should be proposed in addition to criminalization, the Chief of Police at the time, J.I. Cruz, stressed that both should work in tandem with each other so that victims' rights are protected on both sides of the House. And this can be found on the committee report. While Chief Cruz acknowledged that GPD would not necessarily be involved in civil matters, he concluded that if the intent is to hold people accountable from the perspective of a police department, it would be better. As a result, Bill 102 enables victims to recover up to $10,000 or an amount equal to the economic and non-economic damages caused by disclosure of the images, whichever is greater. The measure also allows the courts to award reasonable attorney's fees and costs, addressing concerns regarding the high cost of litigation. A prevailing plaintiff may further recover punitive damages as well as any monetary gain made by the defendant from disclosure of the intimate images. And perhaps most importantly, this bill outlines the procedures that allows a victim to protect their identity in court proceedings, eliminating the fear of further notoriety, which can deter them from pursuing legal remedies. Madam Speaker, to ensure that the Act survives any constitutional challenge, this measure was carefully drafted by the Uniform Law Commission. And I chose this model because so much of this form of abuse is carried out electronically through internet websites, social media, email, or text messages, which can make it an interstate problem best suited for treatment by uniform state laws. And while I understand that there have been First Amendment defense claims against some state revenge porn laws for being too broad, this act has been narrowly drafted to apply only to sensitive content created or obtained under circumstances in which the individual had a reasonable expectation of privacy. As we all know, many state and federal laws protect the rights of individuals to keep certain private information out of the public eye, such as our medical records or SS numbers, educational records, or genetic information. This bill simply recognizes that sexually explicit imagery is a form of private information deserving of similar protection. In closing, Madam Chair, while we can't undo or erase the suffering endured by victims of abuse, it is my hope that this bill provides a first step toward helping victims fight back and correct the injustices that they've endured. And I humbly ask for my colleagues' support on this measure. Sidus Maasi.
Buen provecho, Senator Torres. Anyone else on the main motion? Senator Jim Moylan, I will recognize you at this time.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I support this bill 100%. Anything dealing with protecting the victims is truly important. These victims had their privacy violated and extremely hurtful with the distasteful photos. And these criminals must pay, and they must be held responsible. So I rise in support, and I also like to request from the author to be co-sponsor. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Moylan. There is a motion to add Senator Moylan as a co-sponsor. Are there any objections? No objections? Motion carries. Anyone else on the main motion? Senator March Taitsnu, you are recognized, Majority Leader.
Sidus Maasi, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of this bill, and especially it was important to me to read through the committee report and read through the author's opening statement. There are many strong things that I find in this bill. One of them was noting that it is an increasingly common form of abuse. This is the day and age of social media, cell phones, video chats, the list goes on and on. I also thought it was a strong point where it said that previous consent does not necessarily apply. I think that is an important distinction. And that there are numerous elements in there to protect the identity of the plaintiff. It can be a severe and a traumatic thing to be living through. And going through court, as we have heard in our public hearing room as of late, that it is an additional stress or victimization to have to go through and recount some of these events. And so that was very important to me as well. And something that really stood out was in the author's opening statement. It says that while Public Law 33-171 criminalized the revenge pornography in 2016, Guam still lacks a statutory mechanism for the victims to receive compensation for what they've endured. This lack of a specific remedy is significant because there is clear financial cost to victimization. And I don't know that everybody understands that aspect, and so I thought it was so important that the author brought that to the forefront and that this entire bill brings that to the forefront. And so the author continued, and while we can't put a price on depression or anxiety or post-traumatic stress, we do know that unemployment or expulsion, relocation expenses, as well as the cost of therapy and psychological support are financial consequences of being a victim. In other words, while criminalization is an important deterrent, it is deeply inadequate on its own. In fact, the need for civil recourse was acknowledged during the public hearing here on Guam of Public Law 33-171 in 2016. When asked by the committee if civil litigation should be proposed in addition to criminalization, the chief of police at the time, J.I. Cruz, stressed that both should work in tandem with each other so that the victims' rights are protected on both sides of the house. and the testimony can be provided later. So I really appreciate, again, the thoughtfulness of this bill and the point that it gets to issues that may not, as a community, understand terribly well yet, but it's striving towards helping us understand that victimization and providing justice and perhaps preventative measures, it has to go beyond just punitive measures. It has to think about a person as a human being, and it has to understand their trauma, and it has to have some sort of recourse for that. But it too, if we prosecute cases like this, they will be preventative measures as well. So, Sujuas Maasi, Madam Chair, for letting me expound on my support.
Buen provecho, Senator Taitano. Anyone else on the main motion? Senator Luis Muñoz, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do also rise in support of this bill as well, but I did have a simple question from based on the last page of the bill under the subsection 53108 under construction. On line 15, B was struck out and added a new provision. This chapter may not be construed to alter the Government Claims Act. My question, the Government Claims Act applies to lawsuits against the government of Guam. Madam Speaker, my question is, I'd just like to know from the author or maybe even from the committee chairperson what the importance of it was to add this statement to that subsection 58108 on the last page of the bill.
Thank you, Senator Muñoz. Senator Mary Torres, would you like to yield?
Yes, Madam Speaker. The elimination of the original Section B that was put in there and replaced with this new language was a result of our legal counsel suggesting that, and also we consulted with the Uniform Law Commission, because what we have to do is when we include subsection A, which reads, "This act must be construed to consist with Federal Communications Decency Act of 1996, we must also include any language, local language statute that requires any reference to sovereign immunity or governmental immunity." So it was a call by legal counsel on both sides to advise that if you use this, then anything that has to do with sovereign immunity needs to also be reflected in the statute. So it was a legalese measure.
Thank you, Senator Torres. Senator Muñoz, does that suffice?
Yes, Madam Speaker, I just see that I guess it was a balance between what was required federally and what also for our government. So once again, I rise in support of this bill, and I hope our colleagues support it too as well.
Senator Muñoz. Anyone else on the main motion? Anyone else? Senator Teresa Lai, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of the bill. We were very happy to report this out, and that the sponsor had worked very well, very closely with the Uniform Commission. So this law is, it's been vetted by them, and I think it will be a benefit for the people of Guam to incorporate this here on Guam. As was stated earlier, this type of activity was made illegal or made a crime explicitly in the codes in 2016. And it may be that it could have been covered by another type of crime, but it was made explicit in 2016 with the increase of this type of crime on Guam. But I would like to take this opportunity to just repeat so that anyone who's listening might know that if any of this type of action happens to you, please report it. We have an underreporting of these types of crimes for obvious reasons, but we are hoping to increase report, hoping to increase prosecution. So it is unlawful under Guam law for a person to intentionally disclose or intentionally cause another person to disclose by electronic means or other means an image of another person who is identifiable, or otherwise engage in revenge pornography. If the person is depicted in a state of nudity or is engaged in sexual contact, the depicted person has a reasonable expectation of privacy, and evidence that a person has sent an image to another person, including through the use of an electronic device, does not on its own remove the person's reasonable expectation of privacy for that image. And if the image is disclosed with the intent to harm, harass, intimidate, threaten, or coerce the depicted person. The punishment for this crime is a person convicted of a first offense shall be guilty of a misdemeanor and the fined not more than $1,000 or imprisoned not more than 1 year or fine and imprisonment. A person convicted of a second offense and any offense thereafter shall be guilty of a third-degree felony, which is punishable with up to 5 years in prison. So it's a serious crime, and we know that this also affects children, and this type of crime against children is covered by an entirely different criminal statute because it's made a violent felony if it takes place against children. So I know that teenagers and our young adults are, this is something that has evolved with the use of technology, and so I would just like them to be very aware. But the beauty of this bill is that in addition to possible prosecution, and even without any prosecution, you can still seek civil remedies. And as the author pointed out, those are significant, and the added benefit of the bill is that in order to seek your civil penalties, this bill would allow attorney's fees if you prevail. And that makes representing you more attractive for lawyers, and I think it would absolutely benefit you to seek a lawyer to seek a remedy in this type of situation. So again, I thank the sponsor for the bill, and I stand in support, Madam Speaker.
So Senator Senator Therese Chulai. Minority Leader Senator Tello Tadigui, you are recognized.
Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I too stand in full support of Bill 102-35. I think it's going to give comfort to a lot of people out there. Technology is moving very fast, and when you have something like that going at that high speed, you also have people taking advantage of other people and causing harm to that individual. There was one question I did want to ask the author on page 6B, where the previous speaker spoke about the additional remedies that can be established, is the $10,000 statutory damage limit. Is that amount adequate? Is that an amount that was from other jurisdictions?
Thank you, Senator Minority Leader. Senator Mary Torres, would you like to yield to that question?
That was an amount that was generally throughout the different models that we looked at. So it was just uniform, more or less.
Thank you, Senator Torres. Minority Leader, does that suffice?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'm hoping that maybe later on, once this measure passes with the support of my colleagues here, that we can indicate something that in the event, an individual, I know that there's criminal penalties if you've committed committed a crime once in this respect, and then a second time, but I think that the amount, statutory damage, could also increase, but that's for a later date. And again, I thank the author for introducing this measure, and I fully support it. Thank you.
You're welcome, Minority Leader. Anyone else on the main motion? Anyone else on the main motion? Senator P.2, you are recognized.
Madam Speaker, I rise in support of this bill because maybe some of the things that are coming out from the candid news can be just kind of just be limited until the person is really the reality is there. And I just would like to say that some of the candid news are very discriminatory to some of the people around us. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Senator P.2. Anyone else? Not Senator Regine Biscoli, I will recognize you.
Sitzus Masi, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise in thanks to the good author of this measure and certainly hope that Bill 182-35 can receive unanimous support from this body. I realize this may be an outdated term, but I think calling the product of this crime revenge pornography is a good way to make the connection between the victim and many of the offenders in these cases. This violation of trust is often the result of a sinister motivation. It is the perverse endgame to manipulate people. It quite often is how a scorned ex chooses to take, quote, revenge on the person who may have hurt them. But there are worse scenarios we should all consider, and I think they've been raised by other members who spoke on this measure. Madam Speaker, there are predators out there who play a sick game, who will do anything to harass, malign, and silence their victims. We're talking about children, Madam Speaker, in many of these cases, bullied into keeping their abuse a secret, threatened that no one will believe somebody with explicit pictures or videos could be molested. Madam Speaker, this is all part and parcel of what victim advocates and health professionals call abusive power and control. The label describes the way that an abuser gains and maintains power and control over their victim as a way to trap them in a cycle of psychological, physical, financial, or sexual abuse. Specific ways that abusive power and control manifests itself include gaslighting, victim blaming, victim isolation, intimidation, coercion, and leveraging children, family, and private photos and videos as blackmail to remain in an abusive relationship. Madam Speaker and colleagues, I'm asking us all to do more, to send a message that we do not tolerate the shaming of women, the shaming of victims, as if it were sport. By passing Bill 102-35, we are yet again sending a clear message to criminals. If you commit a heinous crime like this, you deserve serious consequences. But more importantly, we are giving further power to victims. Let's give them another option to seek reparations, another chance to fight shame with support, and to meet evil with justice. Sitzus Masi.
Buen provecho, Senator Lee. Anyone else on the main motion? Vice Speaker Nelson, you are recognized on the main motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise in support of this bill. It's almost, in a sense, it's a shame that we have to resort to these measures to explain in statute and law this grave offense. I've had several friends of mine who fell victim to these acts, who entrusted their other half at the time with themselves, with their body, and in an act of vengeance, they sent out pictures and videos of them to their friends, and eventually some of those friends of mine left island because our island is so small, the humiliation, the betrayal. Madam Speaker, also we see these situations of incidences penetrating within our school system. You know, our students don't really understand the damage that it can do to themselves and also to the other people that they do it to. Many times as a teacher, I had to teach my students what was sexual harassment and sexual assault because they didn't understand the gravity of their words or the gravity of their actions on social media or on WhatsApp or any other social media platform. I mean, we see it everywhere. We see it on Instagram, so people think it's okay to do. People show off their bodies and, in very promiscuous ways. And we don't teach our children that your body is something sacred, your body is something holy, that you need to preserve the dignity of your body. And I think this law should become law, and we put this into place, that now even as adults, we are reminded of the dignity of the body. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Vice. You're very welcome, Vice Speaker Nelson. Anyone else on the main motion? If not, Senator Mary Torres, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to sincerely thank everybody who expressed support for this bill. As you understand, what we're trying to do is create a section in Title VII, which is Civil Procedure and Judiciary, a new section to add for civil remedies in the Civil Special Proceedings section. The previous law, as we had discussed, established the crime in Chapter 9, which was the criminal code. But, everybody has a sense of how broad this is, and I just want to remind everybody what the statistics actually are. The American Psychological Association recently published a study which indicates that 1 in 12 individuals reported at least one instance of non-consensual pornography victimization in their lifetime. More troubling, though, data from 2016 in Guam shows that 1 in 4 of our high school students, 1 in 4 high school students are exposed to sexting already. So the need to do this is paramount. We need to set a precedent that there are remedies, and we also have to have people understand what their rights are and how they can protect the rights against victimization. But in closing, Madam Speaker, I just want to thank everybody for their support, and I certainly hope that this passes. But I'd also like to add to this, to people who have been involved in the discussions with me from the beginning, as co-sponsors, Senator Regine Biscoe-Lee, Senator Talina Nelson, and then followed by Senator Jim Moylan.
On that motion, are there any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Senator Torres, on the motion to put down in the vote, please.
I move that it be sent to the voting file as
On
well.
that motion, without any objection to the third reading voting file, no objection, motion carries. Colleagues, it is now 4:45. We will resume tomorrow. Motion. Majority Leader, Vice Speaker Nelson, you are recognized.
Si just mod, si Madam Speaker, I'd like to make a motion that we recess until 10:30 tomorrow morning.
On that motion, with no objections, we are in recess till 10 in the morning. Thank you.